Welcome back. Curro has posted its interim financial results. The private education company reported a 4.7% revenue growth, whilst a decline in learner numbers weighed on its first half earnings. And joining me now to provide further insights is Group CEO Cobus Loubser. Thank you so much for your time, Cobus. Now, learner numbers softening, I think as expected. It wasn't too much of a surprise considering the current economic backdrop. But even with that, your top line still rose almost 5% and you generated more cash from operating activities. What supported that growth?
I think, from our perspective, we've been very serious about how we run this operation. And I think, when times are a little bit tougher and the sort of top line growth of 5% was really matched with expense growth. So our earnings were flat in the period, but despite that, we were able to squeeze a bit more cash out of the operation relative to working capital and other kind of processes. And then, of course, from a CapEx perspective, we invested about 264 million rand in our operations in this period, and for the full year, maybe as much as 630 million. But that is below the kind of free cash that we expect to generate for Curro for this year and certainly in this first half. So I think our overall sort of approach has been to say that we must do the best we can with what we have, and make sure we deliver exceptional opportunities to our learners.
Well, talking about squeezing and doing the best you can, just talk to me about the dynamics that have played out when it comes to school fee increases, when obviously faced with more closed wallets or less open wallets at this point.
Yeah, I think if you look at the last 2 years, it's been tough on consumers. I mean, interest rates, it increased pretty rapidly, and that put a lot of pressure on families. And I think they've had to be very, very careful, very responsible about their decisions. And then towards the back end of last year, we started getting a little bit of relief, and we hope that will flow through in what families can afford and do into the future. So for last year, or for this year, going into this year, our fee increases averaged about just over 5%. Looking at next year, we'll be publishing our fee letters in the next week or so, but we're looking at about a 4.5% increase on average per learner for next year. But specifically the primary and pre-primary learners will probably see a below inflation increase, or even a kind of a freeze and reductions in some instances, because we're very serious about recovering some market share in that space, and to try and really assist young families to kind of join Curro's education and our offering and our facilities.
Well, how are your credit losses or bad debts looking like at this point? I mean, has that relief that parents have gotten from lower inflation and lower interest rates actually filtered through to what you are seeing in that debtors book?
I think we continue to provide prudently for risk. We're seeing an improvement in collection rates. But simultaneously, particularly for families who have left our schools, I mean, collections are hard. And so at the end of last year, we specifically stepped up the provision rates, and we've maintained that level of rates in this half-year result. So for the moment, I think we certainly feel adequately provided for the risk of non-payment, but simultaneously, we're seeing an improvement in collection levels, and we're hopeful that we can see a little bit of evidence of that in the number of learners who left in the first half of this year, an improvement in that space. In other words, less learners leaving for financial reasons. A little bit less, it's early. Yeah. But we're hoping that that'll play out in the fullness of the year. It remains one of the sort of hardest things for us to terminate an account if a family cannot pay for it.
Well, Curro's financial results are not the only thing that we have digested today. Of course, something else that kept us busy is the announcement that Yanni Mouton will be is seeking to buy the rest of the shares in Curro, and ultimately then with Curro going from being a publicly listed company to being a non-profit company. Just talk to me, if everything goes well with this, which it looks like it is going to be, just talk to me about the transition then Curro will be undergoing, and really what this would mean for strategy, management, and financial growth.
Yeah, there's a lot in your question. I think maybe the first thing is just that it's not Yanni Maton who's looking to buy Curro,
Yes,
but the Yanni Maton Foundation.
Yeah.
Which is a charitable, it's a public benefit organization that was established, many years ago. And I think it's all in the name. It's a public benefit organization. So it's a foundation that's very passionate about doing good, and particularly supporting education. So the foundation made an offer today to acquire the whole of Curro. And from our perspective, I guess as management, it's not a done deal. It must be evaluated by an independent board. It must be considered by regulators and approved, and then it must be approved by shareholders. So there's much that must still happen. And I think we must expect that process will still continue for a few months. But the Yanni Maton Stichting is not a competitor of Curro. It's offered, I think, quite a substantial premium on the share price. So, kind of nearly a 60% premium on the price on Monday. And then they appear to be very much aligned with how we view the world, which is to try and create more opportunities for more learners right across South Africa. So we appear to be aligned, I think, philosophically on things. And I think practically, what does it mean practically for the people of Curro, for our learners, for their families, for our staff? Well, the short answer is this issue is one of shareholding. In other words, it's about ownership. It's what we do in our day-to-day operation, where we've got a relationship and a contractual relationship with families to offer exceptional education to them. We take that obligation very seriously, and we will keep doing that no matter what. And so I don't see any impact whatsoever on our families and on our learners and our parents and on our staff, who is part of an amazing organization, who is executing education as best as we can. And I think, if anything, what the transaction could mean, if it was successful, is an acceleration of finding more opportunities, of executing on them, and really, in essence, taking the kind of surpluses that would currently be going to a shareholder by way of a dividend or a share buyback or similar, and reinvesting that in a new facility or in an enhancement of an existing facility or in scholarships for excellence. So I think, in terms of strategy and in terms of execution, the foundation believes in what we are doing. They agree that Curro is a force for good, that we have a mission to drive education. And I think what we've done over the years is we've bridged this issue of profit versus purpose. And we said, well, it can't be either or. It must be profit and purpose. And it must be about yielding a return to shareholders or to financiers to fund the goodness of education. And the bridge is the professionalism with which we execute both. And that professionalism, that excellence, cannot dissipate. It cannot disappear. It must continue into the future. And I think we're excited about that as potentially a transformative transaction in education in South Africa.
Well, talking about, the acceleration of opportunities that would be a result of, obviously, the deal going through, after all these months, as you said, of course, this is probably, it's going to be a process that takes place over many months. I'm just wondering then, in the meantime, as everything is happening in the background, what kind of capital allocation decisions do you make? What do your priorities in terms of capital investment look like?
Well, it's business as usual. We've got a CapEx program for this year that will continue. Our obligation to maintain our facilities continue. Our commitments to other parties to enter and to conclude and continue sort of processes and transactions, that continues, because it's all in the service of education. And so there's not this is not a financial transaction. This is a transaction about accelerating opportunity. And I think from that perspective, it's in many ways operations as usual for us.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and giving us more detail on those numbers and the announcement that came out earlier on today, keeping a lot of investors busy with your share price rocketing more than 50% today. Really appreciate your time, Cobus. That was Curro CEO Cobus Loubser.